Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980 if you like as well. Coming up on the show today, our pal Sam Fortier joins us next hour with the latest on RFK after a significant weekend at Northwest Field, where the Commanders honored Blackie Wetzel's family and his history. And so is that going to be enough to unlock RFK? Sam Fortier has some semblance of an answer at 5:15. You'll hear more from Logan Paulsen and his analysis of the defense coming up at 4:30. But, Anthony, we're going to start with how Jayden Daniels compares to the other rookie quarterbacks. But sometimes I walk in here on Wednesdays, and I honest to God, because I'm prepping before the show, I'm not listening to the Rooster and his show, and Linnell's in here, and then I walk in, and they're yelling at each other about God knows what. And I'm like uncomfortable because I don't know what we're following. Like, the show starts at 4, and for anyone that's listening to our podcast at some point later, like, you don't know what happened before 4 o'clock either, between 1 and 4 on the Chris Russell show. But anyone that's listening live right now that didn't just tune in, listen to something happen between 1 and 4, and I don't know what it was, and that scares me, but also gives me peace because I feel like if I knew what it was, I might feel even more unsettled.
So I was actually in studio as the Chris
that's
Russell.
right. You were working. Anthony has been working on the art project that we need for 5:30, which is the wheel of mediocre punishment for Competition Wednesday. Yeah.
So I was in studio, and I caught the tail end of the show. And, Russell usually does his dum-dum of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was sitting here, for some reason, Rooster took a call at 3:48 when he had cleanup on aisle 3 to do, and also he had to get to dum-dum of the day, and he had 2 commercial breaks. So I was like, why would Russell take a call that late? And somebody that he knows, can talk at times, like for lengthy periods of time. So he ended up coining himself the dum-dum of the day. But then he tried to group Linnell in too, and Linnell was not having any of it. So that's why there was so much ruckus, towards the end of the show.
So as I walk towards the studio, I prep in one studio, and then I walk back to our locker area, grab my headphones, and I walk back towards the studio that I'm sitting in right now, where obviously Chris and Linnell were doing the show, and Matt Essig just gives me this look, and he goes, theoretically, it's all yours. Basically, like, you can go in there, they're done, but maybe not. And so I go, are they still screaming? Like, what are the chances they're still screaming at each other about something? Because the soundproofing's pretty good, and so I couldn't tell exactly what was going on in here. And the second I crack the door open, Russell is just screaming at Linnell for something. I still don't remember even what.
Did he call him a dum-dum?
No.
Okay.
He did eventually call him a slob because we've had some issues getting the studio cleaned up.
Yeah.
And there is, I don't know whether it's Linnell or there's other folks in here. I don't know who's in here when I'm not in here and Chris is not in here, because Sheehan does the show from his own deal.
Yeah.
But we come in on specifically early in the week, and there's stuff, and there was an email sent about it last week because we got tired of cleaning up other people's stuff, and we're in here the most. And Linnell was like, it wasn't me. And we're like, well, we don't know who else has been here based off the schedule. Maybe there are some other folks, but that'd be weird if it wasn't you. And so they're just yelling at each other about stuff, trying to defend their honors, their respective honors, and instead, I think, bringing each other's honor down in the process.
Yeah. Not good.
Okay. So that's what we followed.
Pretty much.
Was a vitriolic and combative dum-dum of the day?
Yeah.
I see.
It was pretty funny, though. Yeah.
Well, as long as it's funny.
Yeah.
There's a lot I'll tolerate for being funny. I mean, people listen to the show.
All the time.
All the time. All the time. I even listen to the show most of the time. Sometimes I'm just talking. Probably like right now. Okay. Good job, Craig. You left yourself, speaking of bad clock management. Hey, Russell, loop me in for Dum Dum of the Day. What do I do now, Anthony? I guess we can start talking about the rookie quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So Jayden Daniels is better than the other two that are playing. How about that for analysis? Perhaps I should go a little deeper, huh? Just how big is the gap between Jayden Daniels and everybody else right now? And I think there's important context to put on the top of this. I still, if I'm Chicago, am perfectly fine with who I took. You do not judge quarterbacks after 2 games because you're bound to be wrong. That does not say that Jayden Daniels is going to be some colossal failure despite being the best of the 3 in the first 2 games. It's just meant to say that I wouldn't write off Caleb Williams. I certainly wouldn't even write off Bo Nix. In fact, not much about what I think of the 3 players has changed a whole lot between draft time and now. And I would say even more so between the training camp and preseason and now. I think we saw some of the stuff with Bo Nix in the preseason where you go, okay, I can see how this works. It's got a low ceiling, but he gets the ball out quick. He makes good decisions. He distributes the football pretty well. Now that he's facing more complex defenses, that ball is really coming out quick, and it's going nowhere. And then he had to make some plays. He got behind in the game. He's got to make plays against a good Steelers front, and they're chasing him all over the place, and he's throwing it to the wrong team, and you're like, ooh, these limitations are limiting. Yikes. And Caleb Williams, now that everything's not quite as simple for him, in the preseason, he was able to beat up on some inferior defenses, and they're all vanilla. There's no game plans, whatever. And now teams are like, let's show you what the NFL is really about. And he's doing the thing that he did too much in college. He's playing too much hero ball. But do I think that will dissipate over time? Maybe even quickly? Yeah, of course. But through 2 games, Anthony, oh, buddy, is there a big difference. Oh, my God. If you go to the NFL's next-gen stats, EPA per dropback. So EPA, estimated points added. It's a metric. They put a whole bunch of stuff in there. Spits out a number. For reference, the number 1 guy in the league is Josh Allen right now through 2 games. He is averaging 0.48 EPA per dropback, which is kind of insane. If you're telling me, hey, every single time you drop back to pass, how many points are you adding to your team? On every single time Josh Allen is dropping back right now, on average, he's adding nearly a half a point based off his performance to his team's total. I don't know how they get that metric. I don't know how they calculate it. But Josh Allen's playing really good football, and this isn't meant to be a shot at Anthony. This is just the numbers and the data.
You sure?
Yeah. No, I look, when I used this stat, I didn't know Josh Allen was number 1 in it. I was like, I want to look up EPA per dropback and look at Josh Allen putting up this silly number that will not last the rest of the season because how could it? It's a small sample size. But Derek Carr, for instance, right now with what he's doing is 2nd. Kyler Murray's 3rd. Baker Mayfield's is 4th. Jalen Hurts somehow is 5th. And then Jayden Daniels is actually 6th right now. A full 10th of a point per dropback over C.J. Stroud, who is in 7th. Jayden Daniels right now is 0.19 EPA per dropback. You want to guess on this page that I have in front of me? Let's see. Well, there's 35. There's 32 quarterbacks that are in this as qualified passers so far. They've thrown enough attempts to be in the data through 2 weeks of the season. So, anybody that's thrown a halfback pass or whatever, we're not putting them in there. Anthony, do you want to guess what number Caleb Williams and what number Bo Nix is out of 32?
So Caleb Williams is probably out of 32, 29?
Actually, 29 is Bo Nix.
Oh, wow.
Caleb is 31st.
I was about to say 30 then.
Well, Caleb is actually behind Will Levis. The only guy that's worse than him is Bryce Young. who is no longer a starting quarterback.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that is, what's the word I'm looking for? Bad. That's really bad. He is hurting his team every time he drops back. And I think it's important to say, like, EPA per play, drop back, does count scrambles. Like, those are often positive plays, and the statistics that Jayden has gotten on scrambles, that absolutely helps his number here. EPA per drop back, you'll notice some of the guys like Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts, like these are guys that run around a little bit. Those guys do well in this metric. But I think the other thing that's interesting is how these three quarterbacks have been managed. Because if you want to look at the time to throw metrics, how long from the snap to the time the ball leaves the guy's hand, you're going to have to scroll. Either you're going to have to redo the order. We're going to have to change, longest to shortest. Let's go shortest first. Well, now Jayden Daniels is first. There is literally nobody in football, including before he got hurt, Tua Tagovailoa, who famously is they get the ball out of his hands so fast. Jayden is at 2.33. 2.33 seconds from snap to throw on average. Caleb is actually 7th at 2.64. And then Bo Nix is all the way down in 18th at 2.82. So he is definitely not getting the ball out as quickly as, you would think with what they want him to do. And I think these stats are interesting because stats require context, right? For Jayden, part of the reason he's able to have a number that's so low is he hasn't really scrambled to throw at all. So if you're Caleb and you do these pirouettes and run around, or like Mahomes gets the ball out quickly. But what happens when he extends the play, runs around in a big giant circle? Or like Kyler, I'm curious what Kyler's number is. Kyler is second to last in the league. And you want to know who's last? Jalen Hurts. Because those guys will run around in the pocket or run around outside the pocket and then throw one down the field. Well, some of those plays take 5, 6, 7 seconds. Jayden's got none of those. So they balance out and override, in some sense, the screens and some of the things they do in those offenses to get the ball out quickly. For Jayden, it's right now, and this is an area where it's exciting to watch him grow in the future, it's screen, ball out, RPO, ball out. Okay, let's drop back. Ball might never come out. And that obviously then doesn't go into the time to throw number because there's no throw. So it's definitely going to be interesting to watch how that evolves over the next couple of weeks. That's a number, the time to throw number, that I would hope actually goes up. Because if Jayden is going to be the best version of him in the long term, and I'm not expecting him to do this now, because this is hard for a young player. But we need to see more of like what he did on the rollout completion to Ertz against the blitz, right? Oh, I feel pressure. Let me roll away from it and use my arm to make plays. That throw on the run element is the most dangerous version of a scramble because you get the ball out of your hands. Typically, you don't get hit, and passing the ball is a more efficient way to get it down the field than running it. So while Jayden is tremendous as a scrambler running, and he will make some big explosive plays with his legs, if you can unlock some of those big plays down the field to your receivers, to your tight ends, to your backs, I think that's a huge way that this offense can continue to grow moving forward. And that is a big thing that, for right now, he's managing not turning the ball over, not taking, too many unnecessary hits in the pocket, et cetera, and helps with it, or, in cahoots with his offensive coordinator, if you will. But I also think that is a big reason, in part, why he's been more successful and not had so much the negative plays that guys like Nix and Williams have through 2 weeks. We get back here on the Hoffman Show. We can take a couple of calls on that. What have you seen from the rookies through a couple of weeks? 301-230-0980. Then coming up at 4:30, Logan Paulsen's thoughts on how the Commanders can get things right on the defensive side of the football. We'll get back to the rookie quarterback thing in just a second here on the Hoffman Show. But just got a bit of breaking news from the Capitals that we wanted to pass along. In a statement from Capitals GM Chris Patrick and forward TJ Oshie, they announced that Oshie is going to basically miss the 2024-2025 season. He's going to be placed on the long-term injury reserve list as he continues to try to find a solution to the chronic back problem that kept him out of the lineup much of the last year. Chris Patrick, Oshie said this: "The last season was challenging for me, my family, and my teammates as I dealt with a chronic back injury that kept me out of the lineup. I have used the offseason to explore and pursue long-term solutions for my injury. I remain committed to the process and I'm working and doing my best to regain total health. In the meantime, I will continue to help and support my teammates and the organization in any way I can. I greatly appreciate all of our fans' support during this time." Chris Patrick, the Capitals' new GM as of this summer, said, "We will support and assist TJ as he seeks a lasting solution for his recurring injury. TJ is a vital member of our team and continues to be an indispensable member of the organization and leadership group. Our organization fully backs him as he assesses his current health challenges." So that is the news from the Capitals. Really sucks, obviously, because fans want to see TJ Oshie play. Tremendous player, very fun to watch. Physical, spiritual leader of the team in a lot of ways. Obviously, his history here and what he did in helping to bring the cup here, fantastic. But all of that is secondary right now to his health, and certainly hoping that TJ finds something. And not to get crazy serious on this for too long and just totally sink the mood here, but it is a reminder. You know what? Screw it. I'm gonna sink the mood. I'm sorry. I'm gonna go here because it's fresh, it's news, and it's on my mind. There is a reminder that these men that we watch and these women that we watch play sports eventually have to deal with their own mortality, and often that happens away from the spotlight that we watch them in, right? And the reason I choose to continue to go on this topic and just go ahead and empty the brain on it is because of the Tua Tagovailoa news yesterday, right? If Tua Tagovailoa never plays a football game again, how often are we ever going to think about Tua Tagovailoa? Probably not very often, because the game moves on. The game moves forward. There is something incredibly symbolic about watching a training camp practice, for instance, where a guy goes down and they simply move the drill 10 yards. Oh, that dude just tore his ACL. That sucks. Hey, doc, you deal with him. We're going to move the drill up 10 yards and keep going because we only got so long to practice. We got to keep going. But that is the mentality of sports, and it's how fandom works. And that's not an attack on anybody. Attack on us as a media, attack on fans. It's just like we watch the games that are on TV, and when the dudes aren't playing, like we don't think about them as much. But they still have to deal with their reality. And there is not only when it's so acute for someone like Oshie here dealing with this, or something like Tua, where we all see the injury happen and then it's like, oh my God, and we might follow the story as it progresses. But it's the long term, right? And we've heard all the horrifying stories, some fatal in terms of the effects of CTE and what it does to guys' brains. But there's also like the less serious. I guess anything's less serious than some of those stories, the most extreme versions of dudes who just don't walk right the rest of their lives, or their knees, they're in chronic pain, their backs. Oshie, I hope he finds something, not so we can get back and play, but so we can play with his kids, and so we can have this a life that is joyous to live on a day-to-day basis, that is not bogged down by pain. And it's not like they're not compensated well for it. And that's a decision you have to make, right? Like we talked about this with the Tua stuff last week. If Tua can get medically cleared, well, he's got two choices then. He gets medically cleared, he can retire, and then he gives up a bunch of money, or he goes back and plays, and then he makes that money. And if we're talking about $90 million, I mean, I feel confident that if I had made $25, $30 million, I would probably be like, you know what, I'm good, because I'd like to enjoy some of that. But I also would totally get if someone was like, I can make 90 more. I can set up another few generations of my family. I can live I mean, I don't know how much different your lifestyle is from having $30 million in the bank versus $90 million in the bank, but you can definitely buy a bigger house or a fancier car or extra vacation, I don't know what. Those are decisions I haven't had to become comfortable with. Would love to. But if someone tells you, hey, there's a risk involved here, there's no guarantees that you're going to be on the worst side of it. If you just play and you don't deal with that, you're going to get $90 million. I think a lot of people would play. I'm not saying this is like I'm morally superior to anybody because I don't think I would, but I think I'd be in the minority. I don't know, Ant, would you, like if you're Tua, sorry to put you on the spot here, but if you're Tua, are you, and you get medically cleared, we know the long-term effects of concussions. We know how incredibly scary it is. But if you got $90 million on the table, would you take it or would you be like, I've made like $20 million. I think I'm good. And you probably make, a couple million more doing TV.
I would definitely consult with my family and friends, but I probably would end up walking away. Just because, again, the concussions get worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
And I would want to have a life after football. Not to say, he's not going to have life, but like, I value that.
How long is that life? What is the quality of that life?
Yeah.
Like, those are the legitimate questions. And, like, how much is that worth? If you're telling me I get $90 million and I'm going to, I'm going to croak at 85 instead of 87, then I'm probably like, yeah, give me the money, bro. Like, I might regret that in those 2 years, but I might not. And my family members that, have all the extra money, they're going to be grateful for that sacrifice, if you will. So, like, it's nothing involving injuries is predictable because, like, who knows? Maybe there's a medical breakthrough and we find out how to reverse some of this stuff. Who knows? We don't. It's unpredictable. Welcome to planet Earth. But I think that it's another reminder with a guy like Oshie who's going to step away that he's probably much more like TJ Oshie will be mentioned in Cap's conversations when he has missed on the ice this year. It's like, oh man, well, that's a tough bit because, that's where TJ Oshie made a difference for them. And what's probably not going to happen is then, by the way, I wonder how his back is feeling. I wonder how good his prognosis is. And that's just the reality of playing sports. That's not me saying, hey, these guys should deserve a ton of sympathy or anything like that. I'm not trying to make any kind of huge moral argument here one way or the other about anything. I'm just kind of saying we should probably remember that. And here's the moral high horse I will stand on for a quick moment it is why when people call in or leave comments or whatever about that are just inhumane, that are personal, that are, guy gets hurt, Emmanuel Forbes gets hurt, and someone's like, thank God he sucked. It's like, no. If you want to root for another man to lose his job, I don't like that either, but like, I'm not going to be like, that's ridiculous. You saying thank God dude got hurt, that I'm going to respond to because that ain't cool. That's the dude's body. And so that's the extent of my moral high horse on the heels of the TJ Oshie news. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. When we get back, Logan Paulsen's thoughts on how the Commanders' defense can improve and some context on why they might have been struggling so far. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube as well at the Team 980. And the Commanders' defense has been a bit perplexing so far this year. Obviously, the 37 points they gave up in the opener, that's not really that complicated. That's bad. The 18 points they gave up in the Week 2 home opening win against the Giants, I think there's a little bit more room for debate of exactly how good or bad that performance was. Obviously, giving up some big gashes on the ground, not ideal. Giving up a ton of yardage to Malik Neighbors, not ideal. They will not be the last ones to do that. Nevertheless, this season, or his career this season, probably for the rest of the month, he's ridiculously good as a rookie and will continue to grow and get better. And they're also going to give him the ball a lot. But, and also, oh, by the way, they didn't have a kicker, so that point total could have been higher just by nature of being able to kick extra points. But they also did create their first turnover of the season. They got a couple of key stops, and they did enough to win the football game. So that's nice. The question is, why have they struggled to the extent that they've struggled, and what can they do to fix the issues that they've had? Those are the questions that I tried to answer on the Take Command podcast this week with Logan Paulsen. We wanted to play a couple of clips of Logan's analysis for you and then talk about them here amongst ourselves on the radio. The first thing that Logan pointed to is very, very simple, which is this is a team that is new and is still trying to find its identity. And while some of the players, especially the ones that people are most frustrated with, have played together for a couple of years, many years, in fact, in Duran and John, they're still figuring out how to play within this scheme, within the system, and with the players around them. And the coaches are still trying to figure out what exactly it is they want to do with this collection of players that they had, or that they have, some of which are not the most talented players they've ever coached.
In the same way, we're giving the offense some grace for some play calls and some, kind of bringing Jayden along and all that kind of stuff. I think there's some of that going on here with the defense as well. Like, what are we good at? Who do we want to be? What are the guys good at? Because it's going to be different. I've said this on every show that I've done since the season started is I'm telling you, every team I've been on, we think we're one thing at the start of the season, and we end up being something totally different by week 4. Like it's how it goes, even with teams that are pretty established, because you're like, man, we're not as good as this as I thought, but we're really good at this other thing. And so I think Joe Witt Jr., that's the responsibility of him and his staff to kind of say, hey, we want these guys to be penetrators, but people are taking advantage of it. So maybe we got to dial that back a little bit and say, hey, man, when it's second and long, let's be more penetrating. And maybe we can get into some different nickel personnel to maximize these types of looks. So I think that's something just to keep an eye on moving forward.
I think those two examples are really, really, really interesting because, like, who you want to be is one thing. The reality of what you are is different. That could be a life philosophy, not just a defensive or offensive football philosophy, right? We all want to be certain things, and we can tell ourselves we're certain things, and then reality sets in when we're faced with whatever circumstances. And so for Washington this year, if they're like, we want to be fast, we want to be physical, we want to be a penetrating defensive line, we want to be aggressive on the corners, we want to really get guys' faces. And then you see teams start to use that aggression against you. And then on the outside, like, you can be physical all you want, but he ain't that good, and receivers are all of a sudden giving you the business, then maybe perhaps you have some different choices you need to make. And so you have to blend that mix of who we want to be from an identity piece and how we thought that would look schematically to what the reality is on the ground. And I think that is something that we saw some changes with in the fourth quarter on Sunday that helped secure the win within this weird context of, hey, by the way, it's made a lot easier because giving up a ton of yardage is not really that damaging because letting the other team in field goal range is not threatening. And so with all of those things said, when Logan talks about, hey, we want to be a big penetrating defensive line, that we want to make plays in the backfield, like we want to use Allen and Payne's quickness and strength to our advantage, making sure they're more situationally aware is the coach's responsibility. And, hey, on second and long, when it's a obvious passing down, then okay, let's get aggressive. Third and 7, plus, let's go. If it's 1st and 10 and we're flying off the line and teams are hitting us with traps and draws and all we're doing is taking ourselves out of the play, that's actually counterproductive to getting results. And so I want to say forget the identity, forget, that idea, but being smarter with the application is essential and something that you can refine as a coach and you can teach up as you go throughout a season. Same thing on the coverage structures. You might want to play man-to-man on the outside because you want to, be really aggressive with your blitz packages and things like that. And be, there's kind of an old joke in the NFL. Every new defensive coordinator that gets hired is, oh, what are you going to do that's different from the last guy? We're going to be more aggressive. Like, there's no one that ever got hired saying, like, we're going to sit back in the zone and try to make people pick us apart and just kind of rely on the fact that the other team's going to make a mistake. But sometimes that's kind of what you got to do in the NFL. You have to be smart with how you deploy certain tactics. And I think figuring out, that there's not a standard for that either. It's dependent on what you do well as a team. And I think that is what Logan's saying in terms of Joe Witt and staff have to find that out. And I think the last piece I'd like to say before playing some of the other things that Logan had to is some people will be like, well, that's making excuses. Sure, I guess if you're so insistent on just beating someone over the head that there has to be consequences for a football game, yeah, fine. It's an excuse. But I actually don't think that's what's the point of that? To me, it's much more interesting to be like, okay, what are the reasons this is happening? Because once we discuss them as reasons, not excuses, then we go, okay, well, if that's the reason, then what's the solution to fix it? Because ultimately, saying that this is what is happening is not saying it's okay. It's saying this is the problem. Now moving forward, now that it's been identified, let's track the attempts to fix it because that will tell us how good the coaching staff actually is. So with the limitations that have been in place so far that get loosened by the week, if we're saying, hey, this is all new, well, the more time that they spend together, the less that becomes a reason why some of this stuff is happening. One of the symptoms of this is teams have been able to get some really big runs on them. Why? And how do Joe Witt and company fix that?
They're a nickel, right? So you got Mike Sanders still kind of as your extra linebacker. Think about that. You've got 21 personnel in the field. You've got 40 linemen. You've got 2 linebackers, and you've got a nickel player in as your extra linebacker. So you're short hats, and you've got a guy who's more of a pass player in also. And I understand why you're doing it. They're in 12 personnel, usually match nickel now with to 12. So good job kind of finding a matchup because when you look at it, John is penetrating up the field, right? He's being aggressive up the field. They want him to be a penetrating team. It kind of looks like pass like you're talking about. He's on his hip, kind of widens out. But if the nickel is really aggressive downhill and he's taking on an offensive lineman, obviously that's a mismatch. Mike Sanders is not a big guy. That's a different result, right? If you've got a run stopping linebacker in there, let's say, for example, Frankie Luva's there, he sees that, that's what he does, right? He's going to attack downhill. He's going to condense that run lane, and it's going to be
a lot harder. And so I think that this is the nuanced thing that Joe Witt now has to deal with is they want Mike Sanders still to be a huge part of what they do. That's fine. I think he still can be. But as they learn certain teams' tendencies as you get deeper into the season, because that's the other thing, there's so much that's unscouted at this point in the season, both in looks that you're preparing for and situational tendencies. It's okay, they want to run in these situations, or maybe it's 2nd and 8, and we learned that this team, probably not going to be the Bengals this week because they're going to be like, hey, Joe, want to bail us out of 2nd and 8? But against other teams that they're going to look to run it again. And let's try to get in 3rd and 5 or 3rd and 4 with a 4+ yard gain and get it in 3rd and 3. Okay, well, maybe now instead of having Mike Sanders still in there to match their 11 personnel, match their 3 wide receiver set, let's put a 3rd safety in there. And let's let Quan Martin play kind of a Buffalo nickel a la last year. Let's let Percy Butler be in the slot or Jeremy Chin be in the slot. Let's use a different body type in there. Maybe Dominique Hampton starts playing a little bit more if he gets activated next week. Seems like he's going to be the odd man or one of the odd men out in that secondary, but maybe that's an option. Once Emmanuel Forbes gets back or they figure out something else at outside corner, like Noah Igbenogany is a little bit bigger and a little bit more physical. So in or situations where you think maybe they're going to play run, do you get a bigger nickel guy in there? Or do you just call their bluff and trust Frankie Louvu to play some coverage? Like, that's an option. So there's a lot of different solutions to these problems. Some of them schematic, some of them coaching points. Hey, we got to squeeze a little bit there. We got to, make sure we're a little bit more on our P's and Q's on this thing. Or, hey, this is a better way to fight off this block. Why don't you try to do this with your hands? But then there's also just who is out there. And that's something that as they figure out what the limitations of these guys are, because in college, like Sainer still could play the run as a nickel. The NFL, he's still figuring out how to do that because he's not very big. And do I think he'll get there eventually? Yes, I do, because he's super smart and super competitive. But as he figures that out, if Joe would like to get better results immediately versus letting Sainer still learn on the job, there are other options. As far as the final piece of the defense, I do think it's important that we are human about this and we say sometimes the other guys deserve some credit too. And obviously Tampa week 1, everything was an unscouted look because it's week 1. Week 2, Brian Daboll looked at the week 1 tape and he noticed a few things and did a good job of making sure there was a couple situations where the Commanders were losing before the ball was ever snapped with the pen.
Brian Daboll was like, we're not letting this defensive line eat us alive. So if they're not in a play pass look with the 2 tight ends, they're leaving a tight end in pro. They're leaving the back to help him. You're getting double teams on the 2 interior players. It's all quick game stuff. Those opportunities, it becomes much more challenging to affect the game as a rusher. And so that's an example to me of a guy in Brian Daboll calling a game knowing, hey, I want Daniel Jones to be comfortable. I want our offensive line to be comfortable. And when you juxtapose that to Tampa Bay, which I went back and watched all those rushes, they were much more aggressive in the pass game. And as a result, our defensive line had much more one-on-one opportunities, much more kind of third and obvious pass rush situations, second and long situations. That wasn't quite as available here. And again, with the mobility of Daniel Jones, you could tell there was a little bit more conservatism to the rush.
And that is how you ultimately don't get any sacks or get very few sacks, few pressures, and still only give up 18 points. At the end of the day, if you're a 4-man rush against a 7-man protection, you're probably not getting a ton of pressure. And I think it is important to sometimes we get really obsessed with certain stats, whether it's pressure rates or whatever, and we kind of lose the forest through the trees. Yeah, there's some frustrating stuff that happens on Sunday, but they weren't playing a game 3 weeks from now. They were playing the game on Sunday. They made some choices that were very specific because the Giants didn't have a kicker, because Daniel Jones is Daniel Jones, because the running back threat was only so big with a guy like Devin Singletary versus Saquon Barkley in the past. They made some choices to take some L's in some places to make sure they got the dub overall. And for Sunday, even if it was by the skin of their teeth, it worked out. So I not saying there's nothing to critique or nothing to complain about or no adjustments need to be made. Definitely not saying that. But I do think that we need to make sure that we don't lose the forest through the trees and that we see the bigger picture. And, week 1, they were more aggressive against not as conservative in terms of protection, and they got great pressure on Baker Mayfield. They couldn't finish for Jack Poo, but they had like a 67% pressure rate or something like that. Ridiculous. So hopefully they can get back to that. Hopefully they're smarter about how they do it, where they don't give up the explosive runs. And ultimately we'll see if this defense can evolve because it needs to, even though it's got some talent deficiencies that I do think are going to linger and that they're going to have to try to scheme around all year long. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And when we get back, let's take some of your calls on the defense. Questions, comments, and I'm sure you have many concerns. 301-230-0980. Your call's next on the Hoffman Show. Coming up at 5:15, not my beat today. Sam Fortier needed an extra 15 minutes, and we're like, you know what? You're good at your job. We'll let you move our show around, which is different than when, say, he doesn't ask for permission for things. Anthony, I don't know if you've seen on Sam's TikTok. Sam now popular on TikTok. He tried to take a video of me eating in the press box on Sunday, and I was like, what are you doing? And he did edit it down to where I'm just like quickly dabbing my mouth. And it wasn't like I was full bite of something. But somehow that cutaway shot made his TikTok of come with me on a beat reporter home game day.
What were you eating? And before you even answer that, was it good?
The food was solid enough on Sunday. I still think there's a lot of things that are improving around the Commanders nation, if you will. I have heard that they're bringing food to the media annex during the week, and it's pretty good, especially on typically Thursdays. This week it'll be Fridays. I'm gonna have to go investigate myself, maybe as soon as next week.
Okay.
I'm gonna just go out there and be like, yeah. So, I heard there's food.
Yeah.
So we'll deal with that at a later date. However, the press box food, I think at that point I'd had some eggs and some bacon, and I think some rice, which sounds like an odd combination, but I did
concerning.
It's not, well, first of all, rice for breakfast is very common in many cultures, Anthony. So,
Yes.
I think you should expand your palate.
The mix is just.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have it like together necessarily. Although, eggs over rice with some kind of meat and like a sriracha, like that
I guess that is, like fried rice almost.
Yeah. So again, think before you hate on some food, especially you, sir.
My bad.
How many times I got to prove you wrong when it comes to food? But the real reason why I had that combination was because I did my long run Sunday morning before I went to the game. I ran 9 miles on Sunday, and so I needed to refuel and have some carbs. And the pancakes were buttermilk pancakes, and it sounds amazing, right?
Yes.
Yeah, would have loved to have them, but here's the thing about butter and milk.
Yeah.
Bad for someone who's lactose intolerant.
I hate that for you.
Yeah, it sucks. So instead, I had rice as my carb and some eggs and bacon. I later had some chicken and some more rice. They also had these fries they did like a carne asada fries, and I had to get them without the cheese and the sauce on top. But they were willing to do it, and I was like, sweet, give me the food.
Yeah.
So yeah, press box food was okay. Hoping it continues to improve throughout the year. And I think at the time that Sam took that video, I had just finished having some eggs and bacon.
Yeah, it looked like you were thoroughly enjoy whatever you were eating. That's why I asked, was it good?
How can you tell? I was in that clip for 0.5 seconds, and I was mostly laughing at Sam. Of like, why are you taking video of people eating?
Because it looked like you just put something down. But yeah, exactly. You were smiling. I didn't know you were laughing at Sam. Okay.
Yeah, I was like, what is this weirdo doing?
Oh, okay. Because
All due respect.
I'm the type of person to see someone, crushing food, and I'll just quietly observe. And then while they're in the midst of crushing the food, I'll ask them, is it good, bro?
Yeah, which is like a normal human interaction. It's like,
Yeah.
well, hey, buddy, like you're in public. You can
God
chill out.
dang.
I just was dabbing. I was wondering, was there something going on behind me? Is he taking video of me? He wasn't exactly subtle.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether he was trying to capture the foods. Because I found out about this first. I did someone's podcast today, and they were like, hey, you're in Fortier's TikTok. And I was like, what? And then Big Doug commented on Twitter. He thought I was a vegetarian.
Oh, my God.
Not a vegetarian.
Oh, man.
Nothing wrong with vegetables.
Yeah.
Eat plenty of them. Eat plenty of vegetarian things. I actually often I've had waiters and waitresses look at me like I am an insane person, because I will go to a restaurant and be like, yeah, can I get the vegan dish and then add chicken? Because if I get the vegan dish, then I know there's no dairy in it. But I still want the protein. So I'm like, can I get the the vegan preparation and then some grilled chicken or salmon or whatever, steak, something, because I can't have the butters and the cheeses and yeah. So vegetarian often not great. Vegan options
Great.
At least I know I can eat it.
Yeah.
So that's nice. Anyway, Sam Fortier is going to join us at 5:15. What are we doing next, Anthony?
This, that, and the other thing.
Oh, top NFL headlines from around the NFL. I feel like I just translated Anthony speak. This, that, and the other thing next. 48 calling us in about 12 minutes. It's the Hoffman Show here on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Before we get to Sam talking about the Commanders' defense, and we also get Sam talking about the private ceremony over the weekend, unveiling a new memorial, if you will, at Northwest Stadium, honoring Blackie Wetzel, and whether that's enough to satisfy the Wetzel family and unlock RFK from Montana Senator Steve Daines. What a dumb sentence. We'll talk to 48 about that coming up in a few. But before that, let's get some other NFL news and notes. We call it This, That, and the Other Thing. Just a couple of random headlines that maybe don't deserve an entire segment, but that we did want to mention and talk about before we go today. Of course, the show's still got 2 hours in it, so we got plenty of time. Biggest story of the day, probably on a notes, noteworthiness, is the announcement of the first-time nominees for the Pro Football Hall of Fame class of 2025. There's 167 modern-era candidates for the class that included 16 players nominated for the first time. The screening committee will reduce the list of nominees to 50 players next month. The full 50-person selection committee will cut down the list to 25 semifinalists, then 15 finalists for the annual meeting before the Super Bowl that will produce the new class. You must get 80% of votes to get in. Under the Hall of Fame's bylaws, between 3 to 5 players can get in as modern-era candidates. From like an accolade standpoint, not a notoriety standpoint, Marshall Yanda is one of the big ones, two-time All-Pro guard. But there's some much bigger names that are going to be included, including, frankly, a couple of other linemen that I think are probably bigger deals. Travis Frederick, Ryan Khalil, Joe Staley, all nominees. I mean, Frederick and Khalil, two of the best centers of the last generation. Running back-wise, you got Beast Mode, Marshawn Lynch, Darren Sproles, Demaryius Thomas, who would unfortunately be inducted posthumously if elected. Vernon Davis, former Washington player, as well as obviously DC native. He a Terp. He is eligible. DBs include Antoine Bethea, Aqib Talib, and Earl Thomas. If you had told me Aqib Talib was still floating around playing, I would have been like, sure, fine. So you got that, and then there's the quarterbacks, including that Eli Manning fella is eligible. Luke Kuechly, Terrell Suggs also. So there's like a couple of guys that are, I think, locks to potentially get in the first time. I think the most interesting discussion, Anthony, is going to be Eli, because I think based off of the 2 Super Bowls, the fact that how they went down, game-winning throws to beat Tom Brady, like, I think he probably deserves to get in. I know that is not a unanimous opinion because his regular season stats are not amazing. His fame certainly outgrew his goodness, if you will. The last name and his personality having a lot to do with that. I think we've seen how funny Eli is post-career with the stuff he's doing with his brother. But I do think, like, my thing with the Hall of Fame is always, like, can you realistically, like, either were you so great that it's undeniable, and or can you write the history of the game without that person? And for Eli, I think he meets the second one. You can't write the history of the NFL without Eli Manning, and he was good enough otherwise that winds up being the thing that pushes him in for me. But I definitely hope that there's other guys that are more deserving that get in. He is not a first ballot Hall of Famer by any stretch.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I mean, his greatest claim to fame is, beating Brady in the Super Bowl twice. I think that's pretty cool. But I feel like when you just look at, his whole career as a whole, I don't know if it's first ballot worthy. When I think of first ballot worthy, I'm talking about guys that have dominated for long stretches of their career in the NFL. Like, they're no-brainers at this, in a sense.
To me, Luke Kuechly, I know his career was only 8 years. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
7 years, like 7 straight years.
Yeah, he was the best linebacker in football basically his entire career.
Yeah.
Like, if you're the best linebacker in the NFL for 7 years, you're a first ballot Hall of Famer, even if that's your entire career. And for Kuechly, It was. Terrell Suggs, I don't know if he's a first ballot, but that dude is going to wind up being in the Hall of Fame. You're going to have a kicker get in here. Adam Vinatieri's probably the most significant kicker in NFL history.
Yeah.
So he should get in. I don't know about first ballot, though. And then I think you're probably looking at a backlog of other guys. Guys who were finalists a year ago include Antonio Gates. He should get in. Holt and Wayne, wide receivers. Torrey Holt, Reggie Wayne. Offensive lineman Willie Anderson and Jari Evans. Defensive backs Darren Woodson, Eric Allen, Rodney Harrison. Defensive lineman Jared Allen. Running back Fred Taylor are back on the list. I think of that group, Gates, Holt, Wayne, probably Allen or Anderson are the guys that I'd probably vote for.
Definitely going Gates, man.
Yeah, Gates. I mean, Gates was a monster. All right. So next up, they get the semifinalists or the group down to 50 and then 25 semifinalists. Other things around the NFL. Great moment from Baker Mayfield today. He was asked about Bryce Young. Obviously now playing for his former coach, Dave Canales, in Carolina, although benched by his former coach, Dave Canales. Baker, of course, in Tampa, where Canales was the OC last year. And I think Baker has a great perspective on this because he was a guy that was kind of given up on by the team that drafted him. Very different circumstances. Baker had some good years, some really down years. It looked like he was cooked. And then he's able to go ultimately to L.A. and kind of save his career with Sean in a very brief stretch. And then you get the rest of, what he's done in Tampa. And, by the way, that with, a Carolina stint that didn't go well in between. But Bryce Young benched just a couple games into his second season. And Baker said, hey, that guy, his story is not over. And I think it's really important right now. It's really important right now for Bryce Young to hear that from guys around the league, to be like, hey, I see you. And I'm sure Baker and Bryce know each other a little bit. They're Heisman guys. They've spent some time in that Heisman house. But I really loved hearing that from Baker. And I really hope that, at the very least, Bryce Young can carve out some semblance of a career in the NFL. Even if he's mostly a backup or he's a spot starter, the chances that, with what we've seen so far, he develops into a star seem slim to none. But if he could have a Geno Smith, Baker Mayfield, we'll see what happens with the next couple of years of Sam Darnold, right? If Darnold can turn his career around in Minnesota this year, maybe even next year, if they wanted to bring him back and make sure that J.J. McCarthy's healthy and then trade him somewhere, if he is, could Sam Darnold have a Geno Smith type arc? I hope that can be the case for Bryce Young, because the start that he had just feels so unfair with how much of a mess Carolina is, and it's going to take good people in his corner, and it seems like Baker Mayfield, amongst many other guys who have said things, including, by the way, outside of the sport, LeBron James, saying, hey, keep your head up, young king. It's going to take a lot of that belief from people to ensure that he can have any kind of career moving forward. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Some of the top NFL headlines from around the league here on a Wednesday. Next, though, let's get back local. A slightly delayed edition of Not My Beat. Sam Fortier joins us, not only with some thoughts on the Commanders' defense, but with the latest reporting on the Commanders' attempts to satisfy the Wetzel family and ultimately unlock the ability to build their new stadium at the RFK site. the Hoffman Show. We're on the team at 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Coming up later on in the hour, Competition Wednesday. Anthony and I reveal how we did last week on our picks. We'll make new picks for this coming week. 3 picks against the spread, and whoever has the worst record will spin the wheel of mediocre punishment because it's a weekly bit. And, well, the way things are going so far, one of us might be spinning the wheel a whole lot more than the other, and we didn't want to make the punishment too severe. But it does add up to something worse at the end of the season, so stay tuned for that. Right now, though, a slightly delayed edition of Not My Beat.
Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in.
Not My Beat.
Joining us today, ladies and gentlemen, he's a star not only of written prose, but of TikTok-length films. Sam Fortier, Commander's beat reporter from the Washington Post. Sam, hello, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Because this is a later time slot, I'm curious now what is on the list of mediocre punishments.
There's 100 push-ups. There's loser buys winner lunch. Anthony, what else do you have on that wheel over there that you constructed this afternoon? Anthony did a whole art project, Sam.
So we got an ice bath. We have a costume show. We have
which, by the way, is like you don't have to do like a full costume. We're gonna buy like one of those little mustache glasses things for like $5, and you just have to wear that and look like an idiot the entire show.
You got that. We have a fantasy football sub of the winners choosing.
Yeah, so like I could if he lands on that one, I just sub out one of his players, and there's nothing he can do about it.
And then the last one is somebody has to eat extra hot wings.
Yeah, so like not like level 10 hot ones, but like a level 6 hot ones kind of bit.
Those are all pretty good punishments, except I feel like the fantasy football one is actually more than a mediocre punishment, and the 100 push-ups is not even a punishment for Craig because I feel like that's just something he was going to do anyway, and now he just has to do it for work.
No, that's too many. 100 is too many. That is far too many push-ups. And it's also a condensed period of time. It's not like you can be lazy with them. It's like, hey, you kind of got to do them like within a half hour. That's a lot of push-ups. Anthony also probably could do more push-ups than me if we're being honest.
I love push-ups.
He does.
That's true. I just don't know if Anthony's wife / girlfriend / whatever is a fitness influencer. So that's why I was assuming that you would have done those anyway.
No, I would not be doing 100 push-ups otherwise. In fact, when 100 push-ups wind up for some reason in a workout that I'm doing, I get very angry. Sam, nobody cares about this, but thank you for your interest. And anybody that does care about this, Anthony's going to spin the wheel whenever we're done talking to Sam. So, Sam, let's get down to business, shall we? Do you want to start talking football, or you want to start talking about the work you did and have been doing on the RFK side? Which one would you like to start with?
I will let you pick as the host of your show. You know your audience. What do they want to hear about more?
Probably the football. So let's save the football for last. Let's get the RFK stuff not out of the way. Let's dive into it first because you've been reporting on this for a long time. And when we last left our heroes and our villains, the Commanders needed to essentially make good with the Wetzel family, whose inspiration for the old logo, and that is according to Montana Senator Steve Daines, who's holding up the RFK bill in the Senate, which they need to obviously pass so they can then see if they actually want to build a stadium at RFK, which we all know they do. What happened this weekend, and how much did it actually move the needle?
Wow, that was a great setup. So basically, the Commanders brought in, they flew to Montana, them and a representative from the NFL, and then they brought the Wetzels to D.C. to unveil a tribute to Blackie Wetzel, who helped design the logo. And basically, they are saying, hey, like, these are the things that you and the senator wanted. We are doing them. What's the upshot here? And I asked Ryan Wetzel, the leader of the family, does this satisfy your demands? And he said, it's a great step in the right direction. And I said, okay, well, what will satisfy your demands? And he said, I don't want to explain that, basically. So we are now at a point where the clock is ticking on this congressional session. The RFK bill has to pass by the end of the year for D.C. to be in play. And as I asked Josh Harris at the preseason press conference, will he commit if this doesn't work out to making another effort for D.C.? And he did not do that. So I don't think it is hyperbole to say that if you are a Commanders fan and you want the team to go back to RFK, this bill needs to pass. And so basically now we are at a situation where either the Montana senator is going to be able to kill this bill, or the Commanders and their allies on Capitol Hill are going to be able to pass this bill. And so that, I think, is the showdown that we are heading toward. And there could be a committee hearing as soon as next week.
So the quote that you just referenced where you asked Ryan Wetzel, well, okay, what it is that would close the rest of the gap? And he's like, well, I don't want to say it out loud. It's one thing to not tell a reporter. It's another thing if the team doesn't know. Do you think the team has an idea of what it would take? And I guess in answering that, Sam, do you think Ryan Wetzel has an idea of what it would take?
No. He has not defined it for the team, as far as I understand. And basically, my understanding is that the senator the senator and the family work very closely together. The senator wants the logo to be back on the field. And when the Commanders, 2 people from the Commanders and a representative from the NFL flew to Montana last week to meet with the Wetzels at Ryan's home in western Montana, they said, look, like Jason Wright told me, the quote was, we helped them understand the business realities and how other people see this logo. And so we are going to try to thread the needle to do everything for the family. But they basically said, we cannot bring this logo back. We need to do something else.
Right. And you also reference in the story that even within the Wetzel family, there is some disagreement. Ryan is now kind of representing, and he is the one that's working with Steve Dane. So it ultimately it's his opinion. But like there was a story that you linked back to 2014 where members of the Wetzel family were like, yeah, this logo should go. So this is before, everything that happens in 2020 and ultimately the renaming. But ultimately the NFL is not going to allow that. The team, I don't think, wants to do that. So at the end of the day, if Ryan Wetzel and Steve Daines are working together on this, like I don't have a less crude way to ask this, Sam, but like who's driving the bus here? Is it Daines for political reasons? And is Ryan, like, again, I'm sorry to do this to Ryan Wetzel, but like, is he essentially being used as a political pawn here? Or is Ryan Wetzel coming at this from a really genuine place and Steve Daines is trying genuinely to make sure that this family, which ultimately is his constituent and his constituents, is getting what they want?
I think you are asking the questions that a lot of people have a lot of opinions on who are in this situation trying to resolve the issue. To me, I thought it was very revealing that the senator from Montana in May, when he said, I will block this bill to help my constituents in Montana because they are not being heard, sit down with the Wetzels and figure something out. Literally, as the Wetzels were sitting in their suite when the Commanders flew them in, the senator, Fox News had a report that the senator had sat down with the members of a different family, Two Guns White Calf family, who, his likeness is the logo. The Wetzels designed the logo. The Two Guns White Calf was the inspiration for the logo. And Daines is apparently now meeting with them and saying they want to see this at the table. So I will let you interpret those events how you will.
Okay, so that leaves one more question for me in the form of cynical reporter / talk show host here for Sam Fortier, Commanders beat reporter for the Washington Post, which is to say, or to ask Sam, Josh Harris says this is the last straw. This also is a presidential election year and a huge election year for Senate seats and House seats and everything across the board. If they're willing to go back to the table, because I could see Harris saying that as a way to say, like, hey, dude, if you're doing this to mess around and score political points, like this is actually it. Don't play these games, and it's all negotiating. So if all of a sudden, Sam, this is being discussed next year, that Josh Harris decides it's worth taking one more swing, how different are the circumstances not in an election year? Because I have, and talking to folks, I think including you who have covered this, like the dynamics do tend to change when the country's going through what it's going through right now with November coming around the corner.
I mean, it is it's huge. It makes a massive difference because, if Republicans win, that means one thing. If Democrats win, that means another. If it's split, it means another. Like, I am not a political analyst, but I can tell you that, like, there are many experts who see both of these things in different ways. And, like, it makes a massive difference that that's what's happening in the backdrop of them trying to get the bill passed this year.
And then I guess the other part that I'll just tack on before we switch to football is that then leaves open this window post-election potentially for something to happen in the lame duck period before the end of season or before the end of the Congress. So I guess everyone just hold your breath and hope that everybody can get on the same page if you want RFK. Sam Fortier is with us.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Sam.
I was just going to say there's going to be 30-ish days in that lame duck session between the beginning of November and the end of December, and it's very likely that whether the Commanders can. It's somewhat likely that the Commanders, whether they can go back to RFK, is going to be decided in that period.
Bring on an omnibus bill, baby. Who doesn't love an omnibus bill? Get that thing all pork barreled up. All right, the Commanders' defense. There's no transition here. We're just going to go straight to it because you also wrote about this this week. This is our live, Sam. It is what it is. Sam Fortier, the Washington Post, with us. Like when you look at the issues that they've had, how many of them are concerning? And I ask it that way because some things are predictable, perhaps, and you go, that might just be a reality, versus others that you're like, whoa, didn't expect that to happen. How many of them are concerning to you? And as you do the reporting on them, how many are concerning to the folks inside the building?
That's a good question. I would say predictable, like, I think everyone understood that this outside corner group was among the weakest in the league, that it was going to be a weakness that teams would exploit as they have, really going after the perimeter in the first two games. The missed tackles, I think, is more like, hey, it's early in the season. They didn't play a ton of reps in the preseason. I think that gets better. But I think that there's an overlap there in that Venn diagram, right? Like when Michael Davis is just getting blown by Malik Neighbors, you think to yourself, okay, did Adam Peters build a defense good enough for this team to compete? And I think that this all circles back to the most important point of this year, which is Jayden Daniels' development, because if they're going to trail in every game, if they're going to have to be chasing points all the time and they're going to have to pass a lot and other teams are able to pass rush against Jayden and kind of tee off on them, that affects his development. And so no one expected this defense to be good. They don't spend a ton of money on it. They don't have a lot of blue chip players on it. But can they be good enough to help Jayden along? I think that's my big question right now.
When you look at the problems they're facing, how many of them do you think they can actually solve? There's schematic things they could do. They can keep tweaking personnel, both in bringing in new guys. They can change who's on the field in certain situations. If you had to isolate one thing that you're like, I think this is where they should start to try to fix this problem, what's the thing that you're attacking first if you're Dan Quinn and Joe Witt?
That's a great question. And I think they know better than I do, but you have to figure out, what is our best rotation of corners? And if you have to figure out, is there a better guy? I know they just signed, a depth player, Kevon Seymour, yesterday, but that's not a guy who's going to change the context of this room. I think the free agent market is relatively weak, but is there a better option out there than Noah, and Michael Davis, or can you bring up Anusium from the practice squad? I know that if those guys aren't playing, it means they haven't beat out those veterans already, but I just think that the outside corner play, you have to figure out how can our coverage be better? Because right now, I think it's hurting the pass rush how quickly teams are able to throw the ball, get it to playmakers, and have those playmakers avoid tackles.
A lot of the ire from the fan base is obviously headed towards Allen and Payne because of the fact that they're known names, known commodities, making a lot of money. They're supposed to be the stars. But, if we talk about who's driving the bus here, do you think the coverage is driving the issues up front? Or is there anything as you look at the data and watch the tape that you see up front that you think is driving some of the issues in coverage?
Yeah, so this is a good question. And I have been meaning to go back and look at what percentage of passes when they're pass rushing has the ball come out in faster than 2.5 seconds? Because I do think that's when I'm watching the tape, anecdotally, that seems to be a factor. And I would say that, I went back and watched the tape and they're getting doubled and chipped. I know my colleague Nikki also looked into this, but they're getting doubled and chipped a fair amount. To me, it hasn't been egregious. I've seen people, questioning the effort and saying that those guys got the money and then started laying back. I don't see that on the tape, at least for now. I think it's been a little more circumstantial, but obviously if you're paying those two guys what you're paying, you really want them to have more than a combined 6 tackles and 2 quarterback hits.
Yeah, no, I think that's kind of where I've landed this week is like, I've got some ideas of what potentially they can do. I'm sure they have ideas. And by the way, I love when you were like, I think they know better than me. Well, Sam, we tried them and they didn't pick up the phone. Like, hey, do you want to tell us all your defensive secrets? And, it's apparently a hard booking. But I, at the end of the day, the easy thing to say at this point in the calendar is if they're making that much money schematically and what the coaches are doing and what they're doing, it's fair to say that they've got to do more than what they're doing right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think to go back to the point of roster construction, and again, I want to point out that it's been 2 games at the beginning of a rebuild and a new system. Like, I give them time and relatively the benefit of the doubt right now, but even though it's been a really, I think, brutal first 2 games. But, do they have the guys on the edge? Is Dorrance Armstrong going to be a guy that, even if he's not taking sacks, like, I just see Duran and John getting doubled, getting chipped, like, quite a bit. And if you're Dorrance Armstrong and you got that deal, like, you at least have to make teams feel you a little more, like you have to have them devote resources to you, because right now I'm not seeing that as much.
Yeah, that is one of the things. I'm not gonna say I'm gonna give you homework because I don't have that power over you, Sam 48. But I will give you something that if you want to look up, I think it would be interesting because you have access to this kind of data. I would love to see the numbers, rush yards, or like yards per rush against single high versus 2 high structures, because that is something that they're going to have to do a lot more of, is play a lot of 2 high stuff because they can't afford to leave guys one-on-one on the outside. And if they're going to do that, then they need, with light boxes, to be able to stop the run, which in many ways is the key to modern NFL defense. This whole like Vic Fangio theory of the case is that we can still stop the run with light boxes and dedicate the resource to coverage. And I'd be fascinated to see what the splits are there, because I do think that was a huge problem for them on Sunday. Like, once they kind of got out of some of those single high structures because they realized Malik Neighbors was murdering them, that they no longer had the bodies they needed to stop the run. And that's a huge issue.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, I think that's the story right now of modern NFL defense, right? Like, you're seeing passing go down across the league. I think it's a little more nuanced than simply they just play more 2 high, but I think that's a really big part of it. And the Commanders are no exception. Like, as you said, they have to stop the run out of 2 high looks if they're going to play that way, and you're going to need to play that way to prevent explosive plays if you're going to have this, this corner group. And so, I think that's a huge test for Joe Witt in the first quarter, 4 or 5 games of the season, is like, can he figure out a way to do that? Because look, man, like, they just played the Giants, and like, the competition's not getting easier. It's going to be Joe Burrow and the Bengals and Kyler and the Cardinals. And I know Cleveland's got some problems to figure out, but then it's Baltimore. Like, this is not going to be an easy road to say, hey, yeah, we got to limit some explosive plays.
Yeah, no doubt about it. The receivers, I remember when the schedule came out, I was like, oh, we're going to find about these corners real quick. So far, not liking what we're finding, but plenty of games left on the schedule. Sam 48 covering the football and all the other stuff going on, which, thank God, there's far less other stuff than there used to be, but the stadium, Sam's been all over it. For the Washington Post, you can read it at washingtonpost.com/sports, and then you can watch him on TikTok, and you never know who's going to show up in his TikToks.
My show, unlike your show, apparently, has no problem booking high-profile A-list guests.
Well, it's easier, Sam, when you don't ask them and you just put them in the content. Also, thanks for the compliment of saying I'm an A-list guest. That means a lot. I know that was the point of that statement.
Yeah, of course, man. I mean, you're a Syracuse grad. We're all Syracuse grads here. I'm happy to pump your ego as well.
Thanks, buddy. Someone's got to. Sam 48, everybody. Thank you, sir, and enjoy Cincinnati.
Of course. Thanks, guys.
All right, that's Sam 48 with us here on the Hoffman Show. Again, WashingtonPost.com/sports. You can also search him on TikTok, on Instagram, and check out all the cool digital video stuff that Sam is doing for the Post there. Yeah, the defense thing is going to be fascinating, and we've talked about that quite a bit today, and we'll continue to talk about it. But the RFK thing is so frustrating because as you read Sam's story and the goalpost moves, you're just like, really? That's what we're doing now? Oh, you want so here late in the game, you want to make it a little bit harder? And I think that's something that, any fan or anybody that cares about the story can look at. And we all, I think, are skeptical of politicians. It's something that, like, if you're into talking politics, it's something that any good political messenger will tell you is like, saying, oh, that guy's a wishy-washy politician is an attack on an opponent doesn't actually really move the needle that much, because everyone just assumes that all the politicians are not on the level. It's kind of built in. And then to see it happening to something that you care about is a reminder of, one, why we vote for is important. And also, like, the one political issue I will tackle on this show head on is DC statehood. And to know that we don't have a representative in the room to talk about this and to fight back against Steve Daines, no matter what the party is, no matter what party he is, like, that's kind of the point. And I don't understand how some people don't see that. I understand why it hasn't been voted on because, again, politics for people in other places. But it is kind of the reality that here's this Senate committee deciding something for D.C., and there's no one from D.C. in the room, and now this politician from Montana can just move the goalposts, and we're stuck dealing with the consequences. So that's not great. Great reporting from Sam, though, in the Post if you want to read more about it, and feel your skin crawl as you see the quotes from Steve Daines and being a politician in real time. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And when we get back, Competition Wednesday, we got 3 games to pick, and Anthony has to spin the wheel again because he did a bad job picking last week. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube as well at the Team 980, which is probably a good place to get to if you can, because you're about to watch Anthony spin a wheel, because there are consequences to be suffered, because, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, even though the team is delayed a day this week, it is Competition Wednesday. We go head-to-head every single week on Wednesdays, typically at 5:30. 48 was great, but backed us up just a second here. So we're here at 5:45 with our 3 picks, our results from last week. And depending on what it is, Anthony, you might have to do some push-ups or something. You might have to just serve a punishment right now.
I think I am geared to do whatever punishment I must do right now. So if it requires me to do 100 push-ups, more than I'll get those done before we even come back.
Okay, great. The other ones are going to have to wait. By the way, Anthony still owes me lunch from last week, so
I do.
Certainly haven't forgotten that. Probably should have done that today because we had a meeting and such, but we actually both brought our lunch like responsible people. So there's that. So we'll figure out lunch. But, Anthony, last week, let's go over the picks. I had the Raiders plus 9.5. They won outright. I had the Bears. I thought it was plus 6.5. It was plus 6. So they lost by 6, right? If I'm remembering correctly. Sunday Night Football. That wound up being 19-13, 6-point game. So that's a push. And then Seattle, New England, plus 3.5. Seahawks won on a field goal in overtime. That's a cover for the Patriots. So I was 2-0-1 after being 2-1 the previous week. Actually, no, I was 3-0 the previous. No, I was 2-1 because Green Bay pooped the bed in the Friday night opener. So I'm 2-1 the first week. I'm 2-0-1 the second week. You were 0-3 in week 1?
I was 0-3 in week 1.
How did week 2 go?
Baltimore.
You were on the other end of that.
Yep.
You had Ravens plus minus 9.5.
Minus 9.5.
They lost outright.
Yep. I also took the Colts minus 3.5.
They lost.
They lost as well. Got 250 rushing yards put up on them.
Yeah.
And then the Steelers, I took minus 3.
So you got that one right, didn't you?
What was the final score for that game?
The final score in that game was,
or was it a push?
It was 13-6.
Okay,
Steelers.
I won.
So you went 1-2.
I went 1-2.
Which is good because you're on the board.
It's better than 0-3, Craig.
But bad because, I was better, which means Competition Wednesday. The competition, you lost, Anthony. So why don't you did the art project. You got that big giant wheel behind you. And Anthony, if you want to hold that up, I will narrate here for the radio audience. It's quite the art project that Anthony has embarked on here. So we have 100 push-ups. We have a costume show, which again, very, very small costume. We'll buy the actual costume. It's just going to be like the little silly mustache glasses with the big nose that someone's going to have to wear throughout an entire show. Hot wings. I don't know why you put extra hot wings. It's just going to be regular hot wings. That's kind of the point. Is they're not extra hot. They're just hot. Like mango habanero level hot if you're a B-dubs aficionado. Lunch. Winner or loser buys winner lunch. What else is on there? Oh, the fantasy sub, where I would be able to go into Anthony's fantasy lineup and sit anybody that I want in favor of someone else. And then I think that's all of them. Oh, an ice bath. You have to do what were we saying? 3 minutes in an ice bath?
Yes.
All right, 3 minutes in the ice bath. Anthony, spin. Oh wait, hold on. Wait for it. Wait for it. Spin that wheel. That was a terrible spin. It's still going, though. It spins better than I thought. And, oh, no, for Anthony. Give me your fantasy football lineup, bro. I get to do a fantasy sub for Anthony. We'll see how much damage I want to do to his lineup this week. I mean, we'll see what options exist. Anthony is 2-0 in the fantasy league. That's going better than Competition Wednesday. But I get to make a sub. Again, not a trade, nothing. I just get to take whoever his starter is, and I get to take one sub. So I need you to set your lineup so that I can unset it by one.
That hurt. Who do I play this week, too? What if I played you?
That'd make it even better for me. I do not believe that is the case, though.
No, it is not. Fantasy, okay. And then we got boom. Bada boom. Okay, so I play Doug's Dynadomes. Is this Doug in Richmond?
Yeah, I think that's Doug in Richmond. Yeah, you
Yeah,
played Doug in Richmond.
Oh, he's 2-0.
Oh.
And he scored more points than me this season.
Yee.
Yeah, this is a big week. Craig, whatever you do, help me.
Why would I? That kind of defeats the point of the bit, Anthony.
Oh, man. All right, I'm going to set my lineup.
Yeah, all right. So you focus on setting your lineup, and while you do that, we got to make the picks for this week. And I'm not going to lie, I don't love the slate this week for making picks.
I don't either.
I really do not like the slate this week for making picks. I do not feel good. Like the last couple weeks, there's been a bunch of underdogs that I'm like, yeah, I feel pretty good about this. I really do not feel good about this. I'm going to take two favorites this week, which is not the strategy that I would like to employ. Kevin Sheehan is going to be furious. Honestly, one of the teams I thought about taking was the Commanders. But that's too much stress on a Monday night to go Commanders plus 7.5. If I was going to bet that game, that's probably the direction I would go. But alas, let's do it, Anthony. See if you can get some good picks on the board, and then I will look at your fantasy lineup in the commercial break.
Set.
Okay, excellent. Here we go. You want first dibs?
Now you got it.
All right. It's like
one.
golf. I scored better on the previous hole, so I get to go first.
Pretty much.
The first game I'm going to look at, well, I guess I should go chronologically, is tomorrow night. The Patriots have been good to me so far this year. Week 1, New England plus 8.5. Week 2, New England plus 3.5. That's a good sound. I mean, it's a check mark. New England plus 6.5 against the Jets. I don't think the Jets are that potent offensively. So why? No thanks. Also, why did this line change? It was 6.5 5 seconds ago. Now it's -6. That sucks. Cost myself a half a point. But we're going with what's in front of me. Unless you find unless the line you're looking at is 6.5.
You said for the Patriots, right?
Patriots, Jets.
Oh, there it is. It's -6 over here.
Okay, I got it -6 too. That sucks. I should have taken a screenshot or something. But okay, I'll still take it. New England plus 6 against the Jets.
Okay, you're taking New England plus 6 against the Jets.
Yep.
I like it. A team that I've been high on, and I'm super proud of this guy, Justin Fields, for leading, is the Pittsburgh Steelers.
You're just going back to the well, the one win you have.
Hey, I have to, man. I have to. They are set to play the Los Angeles Chargers. The line is 1.5. I'm going to take the Steelers to win this game. I think it's going to be a tough game, but I don't have Los Angeles running all over this Pittsburgh defense right here. Justin's going to have to do something. I'm going with the Steelers, baby.
I'm going to laugh when Pittsburgh wait, you have -1.5, right?
What line do you have?
I have -1.5 as well.
Okay.
I thought you said -1 in a second. I was like, that's
No.
Yeah, no, we gotta get the half point here. I'm gonna laugh when Pittsburgh wins this game by 1 and you don't cover.
That would hurt.
That would hurt a lot. It's kind of one of those though at -1.5. If you like them in the game, just take them.
Yep.
And I looked at this game hard. I thought about trying to get cute with the Chargers and just buy myself that extra point. But I was like, on the road, I don't know. I do think they're going to, this is going to be a knockout, drag-out game. This game could also be over in 2.5 hours.
Yep.
A lot of running on the football, though. Okay, so you got Pittsburgh -1.5.
Yep.
My second game, I'm gonna hope that a team that I like a lot, or a team that I thought I liked a lot, is now in a bad way. just gets absolutely dump trucked on the road by a team that I keep saying I think they're really talented, but it's a team that had a pulse on last week, got New England to cover last week against Seattle. Seattle back home this week hosting the Dolphins. It's -4, no Tua. Dolphins look sideways. Seahawks probably a little agitated with how they played last week. I think Seattle can put up some points here. I'm going to go Seattle. I hate taking a big favorite, but I'm gonna do it. Seattle -4. I'm doing it.
That one sounds juicy, man. It definitely does. You had me tempted to go with you, but I don't think I'm going to do it. I like Miami's defense. I think Jalen Ramsey, DK, is going to have a good back and forth. I'm going to turn my attention to, hold on, where'd they go?
That's why I write mine down, Anthony. Like a professional, damn it.
Oh, I should have wrote it down. Oh, it was Buffalo. Buffalo -5 over Jacksonville. They were all the way at the bottom, my bad. Again, I'm just not a firm believer in Trevor Lawrence. I think what Buffalo's defense has up there is going to cause them some problems. I'm taking them outright to go out there, make a statement.
You realize that the -5 means they have to win by at least 5 points, right?
Yes.
When you say you're taking them outright, like no, you're taking them +5.
The Bills,
Yes.
-5.
-5. Yes.
Yes.
You're taking the Bills -5, aka they
Yes.
have to win by at least 6.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm taking the Bills.
Yes. Okay. I thought about them actually because if I was gonna bet a side in this game, I'd probably bet Buffalo. But they've been a team that's a little bit up and down. Jags, are they really this bad? Are they really gonna start 0-3? They might be. This game, by the way, you'll hear on the Team 980 on Monday night. If you are driving around, obviously the Commanders will be playing later in the evening. It's the ESPN ABC doubleheader. The Commanders do have the Joe Buck typical Monday night team, but yeah, Jags. I like that. I like Bills -5 if I was going to pick a side there. I am not going to go to Monday Night Football to wrap up. I'm going to go to Sunday Night Football. The Falcons are one of the most interesting teams in the league.
They are.
But they are coming off a short week hosting the world champs. I'm going to take Kansas City -3.5. I don't feel good about it. I don't feel good about anything else on this stupid screen in front of me. I thought about going off the board and taking a WNBA game tomorrow night or something. But I decided to stick with the NFL. I'm going to go with the Chiefs. Mahomes indoors. Can they get some of their speed guys going? Their defense is really nasty. Fingers crossed. I don't have great analysis for you there. I'm picking the Chiefs -3.5, and hopefully I wake up Monday morning and they've won by at least 4.
Keep that hope alive, Craig, and make sure you pray, man. My last pick, I'm going to go with the Houston Texans to go into Minnesota and take over their trap. Houston -2 over the Vikings. I think JJ's banged up. I think they said
but he's playing.
He's on track to play, but I still think, them Texans are going to get after them Vikings, man. I'm going CJ and the boys.
I'm a little scared
Houston,
the Vikings are good.
-2.
I thought about this game, but I'm a little scared the Vikings are good.
Are they 3? No, are they 1-1 right now?
They're 2-0.
Are they 3-0
Flores
good though?
has got that defense cooking a little bit.
Are they 3-0 good?
I don't know. Is a team that Sam Darnold quarterbacked allowed to be that good? But I don't think the Houston's come out quite as gangbusters as some people thought either. So that team scared me. That's why the Chiefs are the most sure thing I can think of. So that's why I went with them. But we'll see.
This is interesting, man.
We'll see. It's Competition Wednesday. We'll see how the competition ended up next week when we get to the results on Wednesday. But in the meantime, I'm going to go look at Anthony's fantasy lineup and see who I want to take out of his lineup. And then I'm going to wait for him to buy me lunch because he started 0-2. When we get back here on the Hoffman Show, this week's, as we said, a little bit funky in terms of the schedule because typically we would be doing a pick 6. Dan Quinn and Jayden Daniels would have talked today, but because they're on Monday Night Football, they don't speak till tomorrow. So we bumped our NFL tiers from yesterday to today. So we rank the entire league next, and boy, is this going to be fun to take the Cowboys out of the top tier. That's next on the Hoffman Show. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We are streaming on YouTube as well at the Team 980. Coming up at 6:30, we have two things in the basketball world to talk about. One, you might have heard Adrian Wojnarowski dropped the ultimate Woj bomb, a final Woj bomb, if you will, today. He's retiring from ESPN. We'll talk about it. Plus, Anthony and I's day yesterday at the Wizards Media Tip-Off. We will discuss, including one Anthony Haney doing some serious work on the court in the pickup game.
Something like that.
Yeah. That, after all of the bad picks and all the things that we've talked about today that put sadness on Anthony's face, the beaming ear-to-ear smile now, he is excited for 6:30. But we have business to get to before that, Anthony, and that involves ranking every team in the NFL in our tiers that we decided that are good to do that with. Talk about selling it. Might need to work on the marketing of this one. It's our NFL tiers, 4 tiers of NFL team. Prime contender, puncher's chance, interesting but not quite good enough, and no chance in, anything. Let's start with the prime contenders, because I think that there are teams that need to be talked about to go down, and I think there is at least one team that needs to talk about being brought up. The Chiefs, Ravens, Niners, Lions sit at the top of prime contenders, and then we said we're going to revisit the Eagles and the Cowboys. Well, the Eagles and Cowboys lost, as did the Lions, and the Ravens, Anthony, are 0-2. What do we do here? And by the way, the Niners lost. And the Chiefs get to sit in a category all of their own. I think that's probably a little ridiculous. I think that's a bit of an overreaction. But I do think we need to talk about basically the rest of these teams. Let's just go in order that they're on the sheet here. The Ravens. Call me crazy, but I still believe in the Baltimore Ravens. The loss to Vegas is bad, but I still think that they're a good football team that'll figure it out.
Yeah, I think defensively they also have some questions to figure out. Mike McDonald's not there. They're still adjusting.
Wait, you mean a team with new coordinators and new players might have an adjustment period?
Sadly, but
wow, I don't think that's allowed around these parts.
The personnel is still there, though.
Right, and they've got a bunch of good brains in the building. They'll be fine. I'm not taking the Ravens out. The Niners are an interesting one because their puncher's chanceness feels much more injury related. They're without CMC. They're going to be without Debo. Like, can they just flip the switch and turn it back around? They're facing the Rams this week, who are they're not going to have any sympathy for the Niners' injury concerns with what they got going on. Puka out, Kupp out.
Johnson just headed there too.
They are a mess in terms of the injury situation, and thus the Niners are, even despite not having CMC and Debo, are 7-point favorites. Here's what I would say: as long as the Niners are going to get McCaffrey and Debo back, they're prime contenders for me. I'm willing to put them in bubble wrap and take whatever beating it takes while those guys are out to just be like, just watch them in the end, because when those two dudes are together, their record is insane. But without those two, they're vulnerable. So I think they're still prime contenders if we're taking the long view, but it might get ugly defending that position in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think the Niners, I think they're going to be all right. I think, as far as not being without CMC, I think in that system, like, it's hard to replace CMC, but I still think you can get a lot of, production out of the running back position. And then you go out there and get you Brandon Ayuk, and you pay him. I think he just has to show up now. Like, you still got Kittle, you still got Juwan Jennings. They're going to be fine.
All right, the Lions. They lost to a team in Tampa that suddenly looks really good. I don't feel like we need to move them.
Nah.
But they are on alert this week.
Yes.
To be potentially moved down. They could be in a fluid fluctuation. The Eagles. I am willing to keep the Eagles up because, one, I won't say they lost on a fluke. Like, they got to execute. And Saquon Barkley had the game in his hands. I think Nick Sirianni's decision-making is probably up for question late in that game as well. Really good discussion about that on the Athletic Football Show, and like how coaches use analytics and data well or not at the end of games because of how it influences strategy of, let's put a team down 3, or, hey, we're a really good 4th and short team. Like, should we look at the numbers differently? and I don't think Sirianni did a good job there. But he also didn't have A.J. Brown. And as long as A.J. Brown's coming back, I think they are as dangerous as anyone in the league. So I'm willing to keep the Eagles up. Cowboys are a bit of a different story. They got dump trucked, bro.
Yeah, I would agree. Definitely keep the Eagles. I love the call by Kellen Moore. They just, got to execute. That's the game of football. Dallas, on the other hand, they got a lot more questions than I actually originally thought. And the biggest problem is the fact they still haven't addressed what happened to them last year in the playoffs and what keeps happening to them in the playoffs where they can't stop the run against these West Coast style offenses. So until they fix that, we're going to have to move those guys down.
Here's what I'm going to say. I say we actually leave the Cowboys up.
Okay.
Because it's our system. We can do whatever we want. They're facing the Ravens this week. Winner stays up, loser goes down. Ravens, as good as I think they are, they can't be 0-3 and still in prime contenders.
Yeah.
So they beat the Cowboys, Cowboys go down. Cowboys beat them, well, I mean, I guess at that point they would have beat an 0-3 team, but they're going to have to show us something to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I say I can't believe we're doing this, but we're going to leave them up. But I think there's some teams in puncher's chance that we need to talk about coming up. Big bold letters, Anthony. I told you, the Buffalo Bills, I think we need to talk about them. We bolded it last week because I let you win and say, hey, they should be in puncher's chance. They're not in prime contenders.
Yeah.
I would like a word on that. The word is they're going up.
Yeah. Yeah. I have nothing on. They went out there. They beat a really good defense in the Miami Dolphins. Made them actually look pretty easy, to be honest.
And again, like some people might be like, oh, but it wasn't Tua out. No, they went up 31, whatever it was before Tua went out.
Yep.
They beat the crap out of them. And they're really good. And Josh Allen is maybe the second best quarterback in the league behind Mahomes, even if he just cracked Anthony's top 5 yesterday. So I think the Bills belong. Like, do they belong with the Eagles, the Cowboys, the Ravens, the Lions? Yes. Yes, they do. Thus, they go up. Is there anybody else in the puncher's chance group that you think deserves consideration for prime contenders?
I think after this week, I would say that the Buccaneers, the Texans, I think those two teams. I think
those
the Texans
two
and the
teams,
Bucks.
Texans and Bucks, I think, are keep an eye on them. I don't think I'd put either of them up right now, though. I don't think the Texans have been overly convincing. They're still gelling. I think there's a chance that they do come together and that. And by the way, they are 2-0, so they might win some games along the way to gelling into a legitimate contender, prime contender, if you will. I think the Bucks, I like them a lot. Let's also see how they survive this rash of injuries they have, see where Vita Vea is at. But I do think that they're a team that is worth watching as well. Okay, the rest of puncher's chance, I think, is probably going to stay, but maybe a team or two that could be on the way down. We'll talk about those and see if anybody in the interesting but not quite good enough, all of a sudden we think, hey, that team, they got a puncher's chance at this. We get to the back end of our ratings and our tiers next on The Hoffman Show. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Continuing with our NFL tiers, we got our prime contenders locked in for the week. Chiefs, Ravens, Niners, Lions, Eagles, Cowboys, and Bills. All right, puncher's chance, Anthony. Stay or go? Texans, I think they stay right where they're at.
Yeah, they stay.
Dolphins, I don't know what to do with them because we don't know what their quarterback situation is going to be.
Yeah, but they're going to be without him at least for 4 weeks because he's on IR. I don't have the utmost faith in Skylar Thompson, but they did go out and sign Tyler Huntley.
I think we leave him
we wait
for a week.
Yeah, we give him a week.
You got a week, Miami. Let's see, can you look like a competent team? Because I do think their coaching staff is pretty brilliant. I do think their defenses are right. They still have Tyreek. Like, if I was a mediocre to bad NFL quarterback, I'd want Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle to throw to, and I'd want Mike McDaniel scheming it up. I think they'll run the hell out of the football. We'll see. All right, Bucks, we're going to keep them there for now, but they are on the potential up and up. I think the Seahawks are kind of in that same boat. If the Seahawks were to go out this weekend, I need them to win by 4. That would solidify some things from Miami because that's who they face. And if they go out and dump truck the Dolphins, then I think we're talking about Seattle potentially going up.
Yeah, I think their defense out there is definitely what's going to keep them in games. So if you have a strong defense, I think you have the power to make some moves throughout the season.
The Chicago Bears, Anthony. What do we do with the Chicago Bears?
They got 1 more week. We know they have all the talent in the world around Caleb Williams. Their defense saved them the first game.
They shouldn't have won week 1.
Defense saved them.
Their defense saved them, and Will Levis saved them in week 1.
Yeah, that too.
All right, we'll give them 1 more week. Packers, we have temporarily frozen in puncher's chance because we think that once Jordan Love gets back, they'll be fine. The Rams, Anthony, they're in a bad way, dude.
I think we got to bump them down.
I think we do too. I think sadly the injuries might wind up being too much for them. Realistically, like, do they have a puncher's chance to win the Super Bowl? Ooh.
Not a lot to be desired on offense or defense right now.
Yeah, not too much. The Falcons, they look better in week 2 than they did in week 1. Good for them. Steelers, their defense is nasty. They got a chance. The Jets, I'm giving the Jets another week. I know they won, but they weren't impressive. They fought with the Titans.
Yeah, I mean,
Aaron Rodgers doesn't have a 300-yard game in 24 straight.
Yeah, but there are a lot of quarterbacks this season that aren't throwing the ball that much.
It's the year of the defense.
Also, I think his role with the team is a little bit diminished just because they have 2 outstanding running backs. So they're going to run the ball a lot more than they've had.
That's true. Their defense needs to be disgusting for them to stay in that puncher's chance.
Yeah, and I don't think it is either.
And that's where I'm a little concernicus. Yeah. All right, interesting but not good enough. Is there anybody that we need to move up or frankly down in this group? The Rams we just put there. The Chargers.
The Chargers, I think they got 1 more week. I think if the Chargers go out there and somehow get the job done on the ground again, I think they're definitely worth putting up just because we've seen how far a running game can take you.
It's a Jim Harbaugh team. He always figures it out instantly because he's that good of a coach. The Patriots, they're exactly where they belong. Yep. They are interesting, but they are not good enough. The Colts, Colts, Anthony.
We don't got to talk about those guys in blue. I'll see them this Sunday, and I hope they win, but they need to stay right here until they figure some things out.
Yikes. Jags, same bit. Yep. I think the Bengals, if they blow out the Commanders, they could go up.
If they blow out the Commanders?
Well, because if they're yo, we're on a different level. If they just fight with the Commanders, if the Commanders cover, I don't think they even get based off who their quarterback is, the Bengals should not be an interesting but not good enough. They should be in puncher's chance.
Yeah, I mean,
they did go toe-to-toe with the Chiefs last week.
They did.
So do we move them up anyway? Or do we make them earn it by beating the crap out of the Commanders?
You got to beat the Commanders like the Saints beat the Cowboys.
Do that.
30-point win.
Do that. By the way, we'll get to the Saints in a second. Actually, let's just do the Saints now. Are the Saints in puncher's chance?
Who that?
They've been the best team in football through 2 weeks. Even if they don't stay up there, they've earned it. Congratulations, Saints. This is the highest you've ever been in our power rankings. Raiders. I think they're right where they're supposed to be. Interesting, not good enough.
Yep.
Broncos, interesting,
Negative.
not good enough. They are the Broncos the number one contender to be the second team to be moved all the way down?
Yeah, they probably are, but it's probably going to take 5 or 6 more weeks of, just straight poor play.
I don't know if I'm gonna have that kind of patience.
Good grace. Oh, you're ready to just
Although
pull
I
the
will
trigger.
say, Sean Payton. Last year, Payton and them started terribly, including a loss to the Commanders in Week 2. Remember that when the Commanders started off 2-0 last year?
I thought we were going to be, solid.
Hey, they got some things figured out. They just got to keep getting an upward trajectory. And turns out it was like a little ledge that was actually the edge of a cliff.
Yeah, it was.
And then, it was a long fall.
They're still falling. Actually, never mind. On the upward.
Yeah, there's a safety net at the bottom, thankfully. His name is Adam Peters, and he's here to help things in the future. But yeah, the Broncos did turn things around at the tail end of last season, back half of last year. We know that they're talent deficient. We know that they are taking a year basically because of the Russell Wilson contract and the enormous dead cap number. There's no way they were going to field a competitive team this year. And I think we should just potentially, if they are terrible a couple more weeks or depending on how bad it gets this week, I think we should just acknowledge that reality.
Yeah.
If the Buccaneers go out and beat them by 20 points, I think the Broncos belong at the bottom of the league.
This soon?
Yeah, I mean, they're not there forever.
Okay. All right.
If they turn it around, they can become interesting again. But the Broncos, frankly, outside of the fact they have a rookie quarterback, are just not that interesting right now.
Yeah.
The Titans, they're interesting but not good enough.
Man, that dude will. You stop giving games away,
Yeah. I love the Brian Callahan captures. Dude, what the bleep are you doing?
Yeah.
Something you don't want to hear from your head coach if you're a starting quarterback. The Browns, they won, but dude, I got to say this. They have no chance in hell if their quarterback's going to play like that. But their defense is good enough. They belong in the interesting. Like the neighborhood they belong in is interesting, but not quite good enough. And that's a good point. Nick Chubb eventually coming back.
In a couple of weeks. I think he'll be back for the Commanders game, which is a little concerning.
Yikes. Minnesota Vikings.
I like what they've done so far.
Do we move them up?
Nah. Sam Darnold got to show me a little bit more, man. Two games ain't going to get it done.
I mean, what they're doing defensively is also impressive, though.
True. Flores is scheming some stuff. That's what Brock Purdy said.
You know what? You beat the 49ers like that, you get to go up in my book. I'm overruling you here.
All right.
The Vikings get to go up. Even if they only last there a week, if Darnold implodes, But congrats, they've done it. The Commanders, mega interesting, not good enough. Giants,
heck no.
They are in Broncos country. Let's ride. Nothing on that, Anthony?
I love it, actually.
Really?
Let's ride.
I just pulled the whole...
Nah. I know.
All right, Arizona Cardinals. They have a nice house in this neighborhood, I think, in the interesting but not quite good enough. But what they did to the Rams, I think, had more to do with the Rams' current state than it did the Cardinals. But they could be plucky by the end of the season. I
mean, if Marvin Harrison goes out and plays like he did Sunday every week,
sure,
there ain't gonna be one team that can stop them.
Oh, the Cardinals 2-0. No, they lost. They lost opening weekend.
Yeah.
If they were 2-0, I'd be like,
Marvin only had one catch, I think.
Right. That'd be like a Viking situation, but we can't do that after 1 week.
No.
All right. And then last but not least, no chance in hell, the Carolina Panthers currently occupying that neighborhood all by their own selves.
If they win this week, do they move up?
No, because they're still a team that's like, okay, cool, Andy Dalton's your safety net. Andy Dalton's not taking you anywhere.
You never know. Look at Sam Darnold.
I do know. The coaching staff in Carolina is not what Kevin has in Minnesota.
Great
and they
point.
also don't have a Justin Jefferson.
Great point.
I did think about taking Carolina in competition Wednesday. I couldn't bring myself to do it.
Yeah.
They're 5-point dogs.
Cover?
Yeah, they're 5. Yeah, I mean, I'm not taking them to win.
Okay.
How dare you
Are they going 0-16?
Like
Are they going 0-16? 17?
No.
Okay.
That's so hard to do.
It's hard to do.
I mean, with Bryce last year and the disaster of what the end of the season was
they won
last
2
year.
games, right?
They won 2 games.
Yeah.
So, yeah. The Raiders, look. I honestly, when I'm looking at my picks, I'm like, should I take the Panthers +5 at Vegas? But
I was looking very hard at that game. Very, very hard. And I was like, nah, because I think Jimmy Gardner Minshew,
yeah.
I think he's going to come back down to earth.
Yeah.
Yes,
Well, that's my question. Is like if Gardner comes back down to earth and gets a couple turnovers, Carolina's like, we got to rally. Dalton controls the game. Like, I could definitely see that being a 1-score game.
Yeah.
So, but I'm not giving it.
You sure?
Yeah. The segment, that was 2 segments ago.
Okay.
Can't. It's against the rules. Competitions have time limits, Anthony. That's how it goes. When we get back here on the Hoffman Show, a couple of hoops things to talk about. One, how did Anthony play not only against fellow media members, but some Wizards coaches? How did he hold up? And one final Woj bomb. We talked about the shocking announcement that ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski is retiring here on the Hoffman Show. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. All right, so Anthony, do you want to talk about Woj first, or do you want to talk about your day yesterday first?
Um.
I'm going to be honest. I think more people care about your day.
Okay.
So let's talk about it.
All right.
So every single year, the Wizards have their media tip-off, and it's a cool event they do. I think it's great as an idea in terms of, hey, let's get the media folks together with some of our team leaders. So like we got a chance to talk to Will Dawkins a little bit and Brian Keefe and a lot of the a lot of the assistants, and so everybody's there, and they also play a pickup game. And last year, Anthony, neither of us played in the pickup game, right? Or did you? Yeah, you didn't get a chance to play.
Nope.
I decided not to play, and this year I also again decided not to play because I haven't touched a basketball in a long time. I'm also in the middle of half marathon training, and was like, I really don't want to risk getting hurt playing basketball because I'm not in basketball shape. I'm in long distance running shape, which are two very different types of shapes. I've had some ankle stuff recently, and I was just like, you know what? I probably shouldn't do this. After seeing the game, I wish I would have played because I don't know that I had to be in the world's greatest shape to participate a little bit. But it was great to talk to the folks there and set up some stuff for us this season. We have one big project that we're working on that hopefully we'll be able to talk about once it's done. But cool stuff. But Anthony, you were out there playing, and you were out there not just playing in the putts around part of the game. You were out there, one of the 10 on the floor when things got competitive. And so not only is it some of the Wizards coaches, some of whom were former NBA players out there, but you got some of the development coaches who were like the Wizards practice players, including one guy. I'm sorry to do this to Max Johns, but Max Johns a couple years ago was like the 8th guy in Duke's rotation. We're talking about a dude that was playing D1 basketball like 2 years ago. And he's out there getting buckets, probably one of the better players on the court. By the way, Max Johns, smart kid, graduated from Princeton after the 2021-22 season and then joined Duke as a grad transfer. He holds his undergrad degree from Princeton in neuroscience and then graduated from Duke, the business school, with a master's of management and studies degree. He played 72 games in Princeton and then played 9 games during his time at Duke, including 2 games, by the way, in the ACC tournament for them and played in the NCAA tournament in 2022-2023.
Very tough.
So, yeah, he's from Woodbury, was first team All-League, DC Metro, all academic honoree as well. So, in crunch time, the ball was going through old Max Johns, and he's 6'5" out there. And who was guarding him? Anthony Haney. All up in his grill.
I was, man. So during the course of the game, Max was getting downhill. He was getting to the basket, getting offensive rebounds, scoring. And I think I had just checked back in the game, and I think it was the head coach of the Go-Go. I think it's Cody.
Yeah, Cody Topper.
He had told me, you go check Max. So I was like, all right, I'll go check Max. I literally just checked back into the game. So I go full speed over, pick him up at half court. He didn't do anything in that possession. He just ended up passing the ball. But, yeah, I found myself checking him. I started doing pick and rolls. But it was a cool experience, you know. I didn't know this. Like, in the moment, I'm one of those kinds of people, like, even if I know who you are, like, that competitive edge I just have to me. And, like, no matter, like, who's in front of me, like, I'm going to, give it my all and try to, lock you up. So I found out after the game that, that was Max Johns. And I said, really? That's tough. So it was a cool experience, though. I wish Craig was out there, but I had some moments out there.
Next year, I've committed to making sure that I get ahead of it.
Yeah, the lead up to it, me and Craig, we will be in the gym.
Yeah.
We're gonna get right.
Next year, instead of going to France, I'll get in the gym.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
It was funny because I was talking to someone about it afterwards, and I was like, he's like, man, we get out there, run around a little bit. I'm like, the running ain't the hard part. It's the cutting and doing anything useful.
Yeah.
The skills probably have seen a little decline. And, you want me to move laterally? No, I just trot forwards forever right now. Running, the wind would not be the issue. Conditioning, not an issue for me right now.
Have you shot one of those Wilson basketballs? So that was my first time ever shooting an NBA Wilson basketball.
Yeah, the leathers feels a little different. It also felt light.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I don't know what it was.
So I flung up. I flung up one shot from the bleachers, and and try to half court fling it. And look, I'm not trying to make excuses, but it felt like that ball just died on me. Yeah. When you hit a golf ball up into the wind, or you throw a football dead into the wind and it just dies.
Yeah.
I let that thing go, and first thing I was like, man, I'm tight. This is not going to be close. And I'm firing away from the bleachers, but I still was short enough that it was embarrassing, and now I'm telling everybody about it on the radio. But I did feel I thought I flung it harder than that. Was I just weak, or did that ball have a kind of a weird? It just, you saying that made me feel a little bit better that it has a little bit of a different feel to it.
Yeah, way different feel.
The density's off.
Yeah, there's a lot off about it. To be honest, it sort of kind of felt like if you're at King's Dominion, I'm not sure the kind of balls that they use, but the density on those balls are way different.
In the little carnival thing where the rims are bent.
Yeah,
you ever look at one of those rims from the side?
Yep.
Yeah.
And it hits the ball hits every part of the rim and then comes out. Yeah.
Yeah, because the rim is barely big enough for the ball to actually fit through because they squish it down.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it was one of those.
You hit a couple shots. You got downhill. You got a couple layups. You should have had the assist of the night too.
Oh my
full
gosh.
Speed back, full speed. Did not slow down. Around the back bounce pass, hit dude in the hands in rhythm, and he missed the bunny.
Yeah, I couldn't believe. DA was so funny on the mic too, though.
Oh yeah, David Aldridge is doing PA for this game. Well, I forget what he says.
He said 16, the basket might not count, but that was a hell of a play or something like that.
Hey, you got compliments from the Hall of Famer.
I'm saying, but yeah, that was I couldn't believe, he missed the layup on the other side. I was like, no way.
I got to give Dawkins his props too. He came out firing.
Bro.
Yeah. He played college ball, and he got out there. That first one he hit was about 4 or 5 feet behind the line.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, Will.
And that's actually far because I was shooting regular 3-pointers, I guess at the regular arc, and that fell far. So him being 4 or 5 feet behind the arc.
People don't realize how far, and this is a kind of a simplistic thing to say, but people don't realize how far the NBA 3 is.
Yeah, it's far.
Way out there. I remember, I've told this story before. Chances that anyone listening has actually heard it because I don't think I've told it that many times. But after Dame hit the shot against Oklahoma City, so this is the one in Paul George's face. It's a 38.5-foot step back. I went to my local gym, and I tried that shot. And I hit anything. I didn't make any. I tried 10 of them. I only hit something, rim, backboard, anything, twice.
Fading away.
Yeah. Because it's not, and I'm not weak, and I don't have Anthony see me shoot. My range is pretty good.
Yeah, Craig can shoot.
I can hit NBA threes. But to hit a step back 38-footer, the strength that takes and the fluidity in your shot is stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And Dame did it to win a playoff series over the outstretched arms of a 6'10", second-team all-defense guy.
Yeah. But, yeah, the arc is definitely different. I did end up hitting. I went 1 for 2 from 3. I think I got fouled. There were no fouls really.
You
being
did
called,
get fouled on a 3.
But
I was
definitely
upset.
got fouled.
Dawkins
shooting.
called a foul.
Yeah.
It was kind of funny because when Dawkins would do anything, people are like, "Oh, he gets to make the rules." Then everyone in the building that had a Wizards anything on realized that was their boss, and thus, yes, he does get to make the rules.
He does. Yeah, he does.
I'm kind of upset with Will though. He should have called a foul for you. You guys were on the same team.
Man, yeah, I got.
You must have not seen it.
Yeah, I got killed. But outside of that, I hit my first one though. I barely hit any in the layup line, so I wasn't really feeling too confident.
Sometimes that be how it goes though.
Yeah.
Bad warm up, good game.
Yeah,
take that. Also, Woj retired. We were supposed to do that this segment. We can talk about that for 2 minutes on the back end. We'll also get your real things, real people said, and real microphones as we wrap up on the Hoffman Show. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube, where someone was complaining in the comments. I wasn't in the chat very much today, Anthony, but someone was complaining that we talk about ourselves too much. And I'm like, buddy, my name's on the show. Like, I don't know. Some people, like, we title the show on YouTube with the main topic of the day. So some people come thinking that's all it's going to be, and they don't realize that, like, we tag it with, like, the date and the Hoffman Show. So, like, hey, this is a 3-hour simulcast of a radio show. And they're like, why are the breaks so long? It's like, because we don't play the commercials on the internet because there's rules about that stuff.
Yeah.
And so we play the show on the internet, and we hope you watch it. And we hope you eventually tune into the radio show, because that's how it's better for us. Put it that way. And so someone was complaining in the chat, like, this guy just talks about himself. He got to be thankful for your free meal in the press box. I'm like, thanks for discovering what sports radio is. Welcome. Hope you come back.
I don't think he gets the show.
I don't think well done, Anthony.
Yeah.
Well done. I do not think he gets the show. I hit a thing, but the thing. Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Sorry, Max Underwood. Sorry about that. Sorry I wasn't in the chat earlier to shout you down earlier. Adrian Wojnarowski retired today, which is the ultimate Woj bomb, if you will. A final bomb from Woj on the way out. The ESPN NBA insider, who's been the top newsbreaker in the league for better part of a decade, if not longer, decides to hang up his tweeting fingers. He's going to be the general manager of his alma mater's basketball team of St. Bonaventure, so he'll manage like their NIL deals and a bunch of stuff there, which is very cool for him. I did see a really funny thing that was basically like, man, how stressful must that job be if managing the NIL deals for St. Bonaventure is a relaxing step back? Because that sounds like a lot of work. But I do think that people don't understand how stressful newsbreaking is, and I legitimately cannot imagine what it's like to be Woj or Schefter or Rappaport or all these guys. And not that they're not incredibly well compensated, but they are on call 24/7, 365 in a way that is not healthy. Like, to just be that attached to your phone at all times, to constantly be trying to check in with people. I was exhausted trying to be on top of the news on a beat for one team. I was responsible for what happened on the Commanders beat when I was covering the team. And I remember distinctly, and I think I've told this story before, but like, I had a moment where I was at my friend's birthday party, or a birthday, like, it wasn't even a party, it was like a get together. And the Monte Nicholson thing happened in One Loudoun. And I had to leave to go report. And I was like, this blows. I'm not doing this anymore. And that was my last season on the beat. And for guys like Chime that have done it for 30 years, like, salute, sir. For people like Woj who do it for every team, or Schefter to be on top of all this stuff, to check in with that many people, I mean, obviously those guys are getting information, but you have to give to get, and you have to manage a lot of stuff. What was told to me on the record, what was off the record. Like, it is a lot. And you know, you're breaking contract news at 3 a.m. because some agent's like, hey, we're over in Europe and we just signed the contract. Here's the 3-year, $36 million deal for the 7th guy in the 9th team in the East rotation, and you're expected to break it right then. That's no way to live. So I'm not surprised that he eventually was like, I'm good here. And for Passan and Schefter and Rappaport and, you know, these guys that are doing it at other networks, for Shams, younger guy who obviously followed in Woj's footsteps at Yahoo and was working with Woj for a while. Like, I just imagine the shelf life for an insider cannot be very long, Anthony. And thus, Woj decided to shelve it. He's like, I'm good. I've made my point.
37 years is crazy, though, man.
Yeah, he covered the league for a long time.
Yeah.
Long time. So congrats to Woj. It was really cool. I will say, I'd heard some mixed reviews on Woj, if I'm being honest. Like, he can be pretty ruthless, but he's apparently like the best teammate you could have. To see everyone from like NBA types to like Katie Nolan posting today about how Woj was really generous with his time, and not on like a, hey, here's how you should make it in the business, but like talking to her before she went on her first date with her now, I can't remember if they're married yet, fiance or husband. like really human stuff. And to see like Malika Andrews talk about what a great teammate Woj was, and on down the list of folks who work with him, it's cool stuff. And that's ultimately how you want to be remembered, is a good person. And obviously we all know that dude was ridiculous at his job. All right, well, let's wrap up the show, shall we? Hard left into real things real people said into real microphones.
Real things.
We're not going to be so this year.
Real people.
5 and 11. Not very good.
Said into real microphones.
You know, the culture is actually damn good.
Tomorrow on the show, by the way, never read the comments. Our guy Dan Pizzuta joins. So many of the usual Thursday staples. Plus, we will hear from the head coach and quarterback of the Commanders, Jayden Daniels and Dan Quinn. Right now, we're going to hear from the head coach of Marshall football, who had something to say as he and his team are getting ready to face Ohio State this weekend.
And I feel good about the players we have. Would love to have some of those guys from Ohio State, too. So if they want to transfer on down, we've got a Tudor's Biscuit NIL, all you can eat. So if any of those guys that run really, really fast at Ohio State like Tudor's Biscuits, I promise you, all you can eat all day if you transfer here. So, but yeah.
I don't know how to follow that.
That's incredible.
I made sure to keep that part.
That reporter deserves a raise, and so do you, Anthony, for not editing that out of the clip. I didn't catch that part. Oh, my God. That's incredible. I don't know how to follow that. I don't either.
It's a real thing. A real person said into a microphone. I don't know how to follow that. Tudor's Biscuits, baby.
Shout out to Tudor's. Oh, that's funny.
Oh, man.
That's good stuff. DK Metcalf scored a touchdown this weekend and then celebrated, and no one knew what the hell he was doing.
Here's what I was doing. You know the picture of George Washington crossing the Delaware River? That's what I was trying to impersonate. It was terrible.
Once he explained it, I see what he was trying to do.
No.
He tried to do the point forward, the knee up.
Oh, I guess they are in New England, so still don't get it.
Still, I mean, I didn't say it was good, but at least I got what
you
he was
understand.
trying to,
Okay.
I was like, I see what you're trying to do. You just did a bad job. You scored a touchdown,
Horrible.
so that's cool. All right, we'll do a good job tomorrow. We promise.